The most dangerous demon does not appear in a dark room, nor does it announce itself with horns, fire, or a supernatural voice. It appears at the exact moment when you say something you did not want to say, desire something you did not want to desire, or destroy something that deep down you wanted to protect. And the most unsettling part is this: the more you try to cast it out of yourself, the stronger it becomes. Because perhaps the inner demon is not some strange creature that entered your soul from the outside. Perhaps it is a part of you that was rejected for so long that it learned to speak with a monstrous voice. In this video, we will explore 3 questions. First, why what we call the inner demon often comes from the shadow. Second, why fighting against it directly can make it more powerful. And third, how a force that seems evil can become, if properly understood, a source of awareness, energy, and transformation. Because the true horror is not having an inner demon. The true horror is believing that you do not have one. Since time immemorial, human beings have felt that forces they cannot control live within them. At times they have called them spirits. At times passions, at times sins, at times demons. Across all cultures, all religions, and all eras, the same fundamental intuition appears. The human being is not a simple, transparent, and perfectly rational unity. Within us, there are voices that contradict one another. There are desires that make us feel ashamed. There are impulses that seem to rise from a place deeper than our will. There is a darkness that does not obey the ideals we claim to have. A person may consider themselves peaceful and yet feel a sudden violence. They may see themselves as generous and yet burn with envy when someone else succeeds. They may believe they deeply love someone and yet sabotage the relationship they need the most. They may want to move forward and at the same time find mysterious ways to remain trapped. And then the question arises: who acts within us when we act against ourselves? The traditional religious answer has been the demon. The moral answer has been sin. The modern answer has been illness, neurosis, trauma, impulse, compulsion, but depth psychology offers a more unsettling image, and at the same time, a more useful one. What possesses us does not always come from the outside. Many times, what possesses us is a part of ourselves that has been expelled from consciousness. Carl Jung called the shadow everything the ego does not want to recognize as its own. Not only the perverse, the shameful, or the inferior, but also the vital, the instinctive, the creative, and the powerful aspects that a person does not dare to embody. The shadow is not simply the bad side of the personality, it is the unlived side. And when the unlived remains in darkness for too long, it does not disappear. It transforms. This is where the psychology of the inner demon begins. The word demon carries a dark weight today. It evokes possession, temptation, corruption, and downfall. However, in ancient times, the term did not always mean an evil entity. The daemon could be an intermediate presence between gods and humans, a guiding force, an inner voice, an invisible power that influenced human destiny. Socrates spoke of his daemonion, a kind of inner voice that did not tell him what to do, but what not to do. It was not a demon in the modern sense, but an intimate warning, a strange intelligence within consciousness. Even here we find a fundamental idea. There is something inside the human being that knows before the ego knows, that warns before reason does, and that manifests as if it came from somewhere else. Over time, especially in the Western religious imagination, the demon lost its ambiguity. It stopped being an intermediate force and became the enemy of the soul. The demon was that which tempted, deceived, and led the human being away from God. It represented pride, lust, anger, envy, despair, and all the dark movements of the heart. But from a psychological point of view, this image preserves a deep truth. The demon represents that which we cannot master simply through good intentions. You do not defeat envy by telling yourself that you should be generous. You do not defeat anger by repeating that you should be at peace. You do not defeat lust by denying that you have a body. You do not defeat resentment by pretending that you are forgiven. Moral consciousness can point toward the ideal, but it does not always have the power to transform the energy that opposes that ideal. That is why the inner demon appears as something autonomous. It does not feel like a simple choice. It feels like a force, as if a part of the personality had separated from the center and now acted with a life of its own. A person may say, "I don't know what happened to me. That wasn't me. Something took over me." Although these phrases may sound like excuses, they reveal a real psychological experience, the experience of being taken over by a mood, an emotion, or an impulse that surpasses the conscious ego. Jung observed that unconscious contents, when they are not recognized, can behave like partial personalities. They are not literally complete people, but they act as if they had their own will, memory, intention, and energy. This is what happens with certain psychological complexes. A complex is like a small emotional core within the psyche. It can form around a wound, a shame, a loss, a humiliation, or a repressed desire. As long as it remains asleep, the person believes they are free. But when something in the outside world touches that sensitive point, the complex awakens. And when it awakens, the person no longer responds to the present. They respond from the wound. This is what many traditions imagined as possession, not necessarily the spectacular possession of a horror movie, but an everyday possession, silent, almost invisible. The person possessed by anger does not see the other. They see the enemy. The person possessed by envy does not see another person's success. They see an accusation against their own life. The person possessed by fear does not see possibilities. They see threats everywhere. The inner demon, then, does not need to move objects or speak in tongues. It is enough for it to take control of our interpretation of the world. But here the paradox appears. The inner demon almost never begins as a demon. Many times, it begins as a legitimate part of the personality that was never given a proper place. We are all born with a totality of possibilities. A child can be tender and aggressive, dependent and exploratory, selfish and generous, obedient and rebellious, luminous and chaotic. But culture, family, religion, school, and the need to belong teach us which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which are not. The child learns what to show in order to be loved, learns what to hide in order not to be rejected, learns which emotions are allowed and which must be buried, learns that crying can be weakness, that anger can be dangerous, that desire can be sinful, that standing out can provoke envy, that being strong can seem arrogant, that being vulnerable can bring humiliation. This is how the social self is formed. But the shadow is formed as well. The shadow is the storehouse of everything we could not live consciously. And this includes not only our darkest impulses, but also our deepest gold. The shadow of an overly submissive person may contain aggression, but also dignity. The shadow of an overly rational person may contain chaos, but also imagination. The shadow of a person who always pleases others may contain selfishness, but also the necessary ability to say no. The problem is that the shadow does not remain quiet when ignored. The more one-sided conscious life becomes, the more pressure builds on the denied side. Imagine a kingdom where the king decides to expel all citizens who seem inconvenient. He expels the rebels, the artists, the poor, the angry, the sick, the strangers, and all who contradict the perfect image of the palace. For a time, the kingdom appears cleaner, more orderly, more luminous. But outside the walls, a dark city begins to grow. There live all the exiles. There they gather, deform, fill with resentment, and wait for the moment to return. That is the shadow. The inner demon is, many times, the violent return of the exiles. That is why being good is not enough. In fact, an overly rigid goodness can produce a fierce shadow. Those who identify only with purity can become cruel toward everything impure. Those who identify only with reason can despise all feeling. Those who identify only with spirituality can become incapable of recognizing their own body, their desire, their vanity, or their need for power. There is no light without shadow. And the more intense the light with which someone wants to present themselves to the world, the denser the darkness they may project behind them. This is one of the reasons why some seemingly virtuous people end up falling in a scandalous way. Not because virtue itself is false, but because it was used as a mask. The mask can impress the outside world, but it does not transform the inner world. A person can preach humility and be secretly possessed by pride. They can defend purity and live obsessed with the impure. They can speak of universal love and treat those around them with contempt. They can speak of peace, yet radiate subtle violence in every word. The unintegrated shadow always finds a crack, and when it finds that crack, it appears as a demon. The word possession is often imagined as something extreme, but psychologically, we are all possessed from time to time. We are possessed by a mood, by a fantasy, by an emotion, by an old story about ourselves, by a childish need we cannot name. Everyday possession happens when a part takes the place of the whole. Anger takes the place of consciousness. Fear takes the place of reality. Shame takes the place of identity. Desire takes the place of love. Pride takes the place of dignity. Resentment takes the place of justice. In that moment, one no longer has an emotion. The emotion has you. This is the most characteristic feature of the inner demon. It reduces the totality of personality to a single impulse. It allows no nuance, no pause, no reflection. It wants to act now. It wants to punish now. It wants to possess now. It wants to flee now. It wants to destroy now. And its argument always seems convincing. The inner demon rarely appears saying, "I have come to ruin your life." It presents itself as a justification. You have the right to react this way. After everything they did to you, they deserve to suffer. No one values you, so you should value no one. If you don't control everything, they will abandon you. If you're not perfect, you don't deserve love. If the other shines, you disappear. The inner demon does more than drive. It interprets. It makes the world appear exactly as it needs it to appear to feed its existence. If it is a demon of abandonment, it will find signs of abandonment in any silence. If it is a demon of humiliation, it will find insults in any critique. If it is a demon of envy, it will find injustice in any other's success. If it is a demon of guilt, it will find condemnation even in joy. And so the person becomes trapped in a circle. First, they feel an intense emotion. Then they interpret the world from that emotion. Then they act according to that interpretation. Finally, the consequences of their actions seem to confirm that the world was exactly as the demon said. The jealous person controls, and by controlling destroys trust. Then they use the other's distance as proof that they were right to distrust. The resentful person attacks before being hurt, and by attacking provokes rejection. Then they use that rejection as proof that everyone is an enemy. The proud person asks for no help, fails in silence, and then uses their solitude as proof that no one understands them. The inner demon creates the hell it then points to as evidence. And yet, if one looks deeply enough, something unexpected is revealed. Behind many inner demons lies an old wound trying to protect itself. Not every inner demon is born from evil. Many are born from pain. The child who was humiliated may develop a demon of pride. This demon promises that they will never feel small again. It tells them they must be above everyone, that they cannot make mistakes, that they cannot ask for forgiveness, that they cannot show ignorance. On the surface, it appears as arrogance. At its core, it is a defense against shame. The child who was abandoned may develop a demon of control. This demon promises that they will never again be caught off guard by loss. It tells them they must watch, demand, anticipate, suspect, measure every gesture and every silence. On the surface, it appears as possessiveness. At its core, it is terror. The child who was ignored may develop a demon of grandeur. This demon promises that one day everyone will have to see them. It tells them they must be special, brilliant, indispensable, superior. On the surface, it appears as vanity. At its core, it is a hunger for existence. The child who could not express anger may develop a passive-aggressive demon. This demon promises that they can punish without risking direct conflict. It teaches them to stay silent, withdraw, insinuate, sabotage, and deny what they feel. On the surface, it appears as coldness. At its core, it is an anger that was never allowed to speak. This does not justify the harm, but it explains it. And understanding does not mean excusing. Understanding means reclaiming the possibility of responding differently. As long as the inner demon remains completely unconscious, the person believes they are obeying reality. But when they begin to see it, even for an instant, a small distance appears. And that distance is the beginning of freedom. One can say, "This is not my whole personality. This is a part of me." This is not absolute truth. It is a wound speaking. This is not destiny. It is repetition. That separation is decisive because the inner demon wants to be confused with the whole self. It wants to speak in the first person. It wants to say, "I am like this." But consciousness can respond, "No. You are a part of me, but you are not the totality of me." In depth psychology, this act of differentiation is fundamental. It is not about destroying the impulse, but removing it from the throne. Anger can exist, but it should not rule the entire kingdom. Fear can be heard, but it should not decide every outcome. Desire can have a place, but it should not devour the soul. Here emerges a task more difficult than repression: the inner negotiation. The inner demon is not defeated with hatred, because hatred feeds it. Nor is it defeated by obeying it, because then it becomes a tyrant. It is confronted with a strange mixture of firmness and attention. One must look at it without falling to their knees before it, but also without pretending it does not exist. This is what many people do not understand about shadow work. It is not about celebrating any dark impulse as if it were wisdom, nor is it about condemning everything as evil. It is about asking, what energy is trapped here? What part of my life was exiled? What does this force want? What price am I paying for not listening? And what price would I pay if I obeyed blindly? The shadow demands responsibility, not indulgence. One of the most dangerous ways the inner demon acts is through projection. When we cannot recognize a quality within ourselves, we begin to see it exaggerated in others. The proud cannot bear the pride of others. The envious denounces the envy of everyone. The manipulator believes that everyone manipulates them. The aggressive feels surrounded by aggressors. The false moralist sees corruption everywhere except in their own heart. This does not mean that external evil does not exist. It would be naive to think so. There are destructive people, cruel systems, real injustices, and truly evil acts. But projection appears when our reaction is disproportionate, repetitive, and charged with an energy that seems to come from far away. Someone makes a minimal comment, and we feel enormous fury. Someone receives recognition, and we feel a bitterness that does not correspond to the fact. Someone contradicts us, and we feel as if our entire existence has been attacked. The present is small, but the reaction is immense. There, shadow often resides. Projection turns the world into a theater for our internal contents. We do not see the other as they are. We use them as a screen. We place upon them the figure of the father, the mother, the rival, the traitor, the executioner, the child we once were, the monster we do not want to be. And then we fight outside a battle that belongs within. This explains why some people constantly need enemies. If they do not find them, they invent them. Because the external enemy allows them to avoid facing their inner conflict. As long as the demon is outside, one can feel innocent. As long as evil always bears the face of the other, one does not have to descend into their own darkness. But this innocence is false. Those who do not recognize their own demon are condemned to see it everywhere. And the more they fight it outside, the more it grows within. This is the tragedy of many moral crusades. They begin as a defense of good, but end up possessed by the same darkness they claim to fight. Hatred disguises itself as justice. Cruelty disguises itself as purity. Revenge disguises itself as truth. The ego disguises itself as mission. That is why, in many spiritual traditions, the first battlefield is not the world, but the heart. Not because the world does not matter, but because the world is transformed by human beings who still carry inside them what they have not understood. An unconscious person can fight a monster and become it without realizing. History is full of individuals and societies who projected their collective shadow onto a group, a class, a race, a religion, or a nation. Once the other was turned into a demon, any cruelty seemed permitted. Dehumanization always begins with projection. They are the darkness. We are the light. But no one who fully identifies with the light remains innocent for long. The question then is not whether darkness exists in the world. The question is, how much of that darkness am I carrying without knowing it? In myths, the hero does not become whole by ascending directly to the heavens. First, they must descend. They must enter the forest, the labyrinth, the cave, the underworld, the belly of the whale, the enchanted castle, the night of the soul. Descent is a universal image of confronting the unconscious. No one finds their soul by merely accumulating luminous knowledge. There comes a point on the path when the seeker must face that which contradicts their ideal self-image. They must discover their pride, their cowardice, their resentment, their desire for power, their need for approval, their secret cruelty, their dependency, their hunger, their fear. This is painful because it destroys the fantasy of innocence. But it is also liberating, because the energy trapped in denial begins to return to conscious life. Robert A. Johnson, drawing from the Jungian tradition, insisted that the shadow contains not only darkness, but also gold. This idea is essential. The gold of the shadow is the vital energy that was buried along with what we rejected. A person who repressed their anger may have buried their strength as well. A person who repressed their desire may have buried their creativity as well. A person who repressed their ambition may have buried their capacity to build. A person who repressed their sadness may have buried their depth. The inner demon guards a door. That door must not be opened naively. There are forces that can destroy if released without awareness. But it must not be sealed forever either. Because behind that door lies not only the monster, also lies the lost vitality. In alchemy, transformation begins with the nigredo, the black phase. It is a time of decomposition, confusion, symbolic decay. All that is false begins to fall. What once seemed stable dissolves. The old identity loses its shape. The alchemist does not find gold by avoiding the dark matter, but by working with it. Psychologically, the nigredo appears when a person can no longer sustain the mask. External life may continue functioning, but internally, something rots. What once gave meaning is no longer enough. Old ideals feel dry. Ancient defenses become unbearable. The person begins to sense that something inside demands to be seen. This moment may feel like a crisis, but it can also be an initiation. The inner demon appears with greater force when the old way of living can no longer contain the energy of the psyche. That is why many midlife crises, spiritual crises, or creative crises have a demonic character. Not because an external force entered the person, but because a long-denied internal force demands participation in life. The problem is that the ego usually interprets this intrusion as an absolute threat. It wants to restore the previous order. It wants to return to who it was. It wants to close the door. But sometimes the door opened because the soul can no longer bear living in a room that is too small. Here the inner demon can be understood as a deformed messenger. Its form is terrifying because it was repressed. Its language is violent because it never learned to speak. Its energy seems destructive because it never found a symbolic, conscious, human expression. The task is not to allow it to destroy the house. The task is to discover which part of the house needs to be rebuilt. In many stories, the image of a pact with the devil appears. A human being sells their soul in exchange for power, knowledge, pleasure, youth, fame, or dominion over the world. Faust is the classic figure of this temptation. A man dissatisfied with human limitations, seeking a total experience, and ultimately negotiating with a dark force. Psychologically, the pact with the demon occurs whenever we surrender our wholeness in exchange for a one-sided reward. A person sells their soul to success when they sacrifice their inner life for external recognition. They sell their soul to resentment when they would rather be right than heal. They sell their soul to pleasure when they use the body to escape emptiness. They sell their soul to control when they abandon love in order to avoid vulnerability. They sell their soul to image when they destroy their authenticity in order to be admired. The demon always offers something real. That is why temptation works. It does not offer pure deception. It offers power, relief, intensity, security, greatness, revenge, belonging, excitement. The problem is the price. What is demonic lies not only in what it offers, but in the wholeness it demands in return. Success is not demonic, but it becomes demonic when it demands the death of the soul. Pleasure is not demonic, but it becomes demonic when it destroys the capacity to love. Power is not demonic, but it becomes demonic when it turns other people into objects. Security is not demonic, but it becomes demonic when it locks life inside a prison. The inner demon always absolutizes one part. It takes a legitimate need and turns it into a god. The need for love becomes dependency. The need for justice becomes revenge. The need for self-expression becomes narcissism. The need for protection becomes paranoia. The need for freedom becomes irresponsibility. This is the hidden mechanism. The demonic does not create energy out of nothing. It hijacks a human energy and separates it from the whole. That is why rejecting temptation is not enough. One must rescue the need that temptation has distorted. If a person only represses their desire for power, power will return unconsciously. If they only condemn their anger, anger will reappear as sarcasm, illness, sabotage, or fantasy. If they only deny their need for admiration, they will seek admiration in increasingly indirect ways. If they preach detachment while being filled with emotional hunger, their spirituality will become a mask. Integration requires brutal honesty. Not, "I am bad for wanting this," but rather, "What does this part of me want? And how can it find a worthy way to exist?" Not, "I must kill my ambition," but, "How can my ambition serve something greater than my ego?" Not, "I must eliminate my anger," but, "What boundary, what truth, or what value is this anger trying to defend?" The demon weakens when the energy it has hijacked finds a conscious path. In many traditions, knowing the name of a demon gives power over it. This image has a deep psychological meaning. What has no name remains diffuse, atmospheric, omnipresent. But when a force receives a name, it begins to have boundaries. It is not the same to say, "My life is a mess," as it is to say, "I am trapped in resentment." It is not the same to say, "I am a disaster," as it is to say, "I am acting from a wound of abandonment." It is not the same to say, "Everyone is against me," as it is to say, "My humiliation complex is interpreting this situation as an attack." Naming does not solve everything, but it separates. And separation is the first act of consciousness. The inner demon hates being observed with precision. It prefers fog. It prefers generalities. It prefers that you say, "This is how I am," rather than, "This is a part of me that activates when I feel shame." It prefers that you say, "The world is unfair," rather than, "It hurts me that another's success awakens my sense of inferiority." It prefers that you say, "No one is trustworthy," rather than, "I am afraid to depend on someone again." The name breaks the spell. That is why inner work requires an almost religious attention. One must observe when the force appears, what awakens it, what phrases it uses, what images it brings, what it wants to do with the body, what memories it summons, what promise it offers, and what price it demands. Some people discover that their inner demon appears when they feel ignored, others when someone corrects them, others when they are about to achieve something important, others when they feel real intimacy, others when they must rest and not produce, others when someone shows them tenderness. The demon does not always appear to push toward excess. Sometimes it appears to prevent good. There are people who sabotage love not because they love little, but because intimacy awakens an ancient terror. There are people who sabotage success not because they are incapable, but because standing out would make them visible to an internal, punishing gaze. There are people who sabotage peace because they grew up in chaos, and calm seems suspicious. There are people who sabotage joy because a part of them believes that suffering is safer than expecting something good. This is one of the most tragic aspects of the inner demon. Sometimes it does not protect from evil, but from good. It protects from a good that the psyche does not know how to receive. Here a difficult truth emerges. Many people not only fear their darkness, they also fear their light. They fear their greatness, their talent, their beauty, their sensitivity, their capacity to love. And because they cannot bear that gold, they bury it in the shadow. Then they feel emptiness, envy, or bitterness when they see others living what they themselves do not allow themselves to live. The inner demon can be the inverted guardian of that gold. It seems to say, "Do not enter here." But behind its threat may lie an essential part of life waiting to be reclaimed. Integrating the inner demon does not mean obeying it. This confusion is dangerous. Some people believe that accepting their shadow means acting on every impulse, saying everything they feel, destroying boundaries, justifying cruelties, or calling irresponsibility authenticity. That is not integration. That is possession dressed in therapeutic language. Integration means recognizing a force, understanding its origin, assuming its energy, and giving it a form that serves the wholeness of the personality. Integrated anger becomes a boundary. Possessed anger becomes violence. Integrated desire becomes creativity, intimacy, and vital movement. Possessed desire becomes consumption and emptiness. Integrated pride becomes dignity. Possessed pride becomes arrogance. Integrated fear becomes prudence. Possessed fear becomes a prison. The difference lies in consciousness. Integration always involves sacrifice. The ego must sacrifice its image of purity. It must accept that it is not only good, not only rational, not only spiritual, not only a victim, not only innocent. It must accept a broader, more uncomfortable reality. I am capable of both light and darkness. But this sacrifice does not destroy the individual. It makes them more whole. A person who knows their anger can choose not to use it destructively. A person who knows their envy can turn it into information about their unlived desires. A person who knows their need for power can channel it toward responsibility. A person who knows their capacity for lying can become more humble before the truth. Those who believe they have no demon are defenseless against it. Those who know it, on the other hand, can begin to relate to it. There is a vast difference between being possessed by a force and having a conscious relationship with that force. In the first case, one acts unknowingly. In the second, one listens, discerns, and decides. The demon ceases to be master and becomes a messenger. Not necessarily a friend, but a source of psychic information. In some cases, integration requires ritual. Not necessarily a formal religious ritual, but a symbolic act that gives form to the invisible. Writing a letter that will never be sent. Burning a paper with a confession. Walking in silence for hours, speaking to an empty chair as if the rejected part were there. Creating art from dark emotion. Hitting a pillow in private. Praying, meditating, confessing, crying, asking for forgiveness. Setting a boundary. The psyche does not live on ideas alone. It lives on images, acts, symbols, and experiences. That is why intellectual understanding of the shadow is not enough. One can know many things about Jung, psychology, myths, and archetypes, and still be completely possessed by their own complex. Knowledge only becomes real when it changes the way one lives, responds, loves, works, and suffers. Integration is not a theory, it is a slow practice. But one question still remains. If the inner demon can contain energy, protection, and even gold, why does it appear in such a destructive form? The answer is simple and terrible, because it was left alone in the darkness. What remains outside of consciousness does not mature. An emotion repressed for years does not become wise on its own. A denied desire does not automatically become holy. An ignored wound does not become compassionate simply because time passes. What is abandoned within us often remains at the age at which it was abandoned. That is why many inner demons are childish. They possess the strength of an adult, but the logic of a wounded child. They demand now. They punish now. They despair now. They understand neither proportion, nor patience, nor dialogue. Their world is absolute, because they were born in moments when the psyche lacked the resources to process pain. The adult must return to those places, not to live from them, but to bring them into the present. This is what it means to illuminate the shadow. It is not about destroying darkness with violence. It is about entering it with enough consciousness so that what was frozen can begin to move again. At first, the inner demon appears to be an enemy of the soul. But seen more deeply, it may be a sign that the personality has become divided. One part lives on the surface adapted, functional, acceptable. Another part remains below, carrying anger, desire, sorrow, shame, strength, creativity, and a hunger for life. As long as those two parts do not meet, the person will remain at war with themselves. And an inner war always ends up being projected onto the outer world. The inner demon is not an excuse to cause harm, nor is it a dark fantasy meant to feed spiritual narcissism. It is an ancient image used to name a real human experience, the feeling that within us lives a force capable of destroying our freedom if we do not come to know it. But that force does not always simply want to destroy. Sometimes it wants to be seen. Sometimes it wants to return an energy we have lost. Sometimes it wants to force us to abandon a false life. Sometimes it wants to show us that our goodness was too narrow, our identity too rigid, our spirituality too clean, our consciousness too small. The inner demon becomes most dangerous when we completely deny it or blindly obey it. Denial pushes it into the shadow. Obedience places it upon the throne. Only consciousness can find a third path. That path is not comfortable. It demands humility. It demands looking at our impulses without decorating them. It demands recognizing our capacity to cause harm. It demands recovering the gold without justifying the darkness. It demands that we stop projecting onto others what we still cannot bear to see within ourselves. Perhaps that is why so many traditions imagine spiritual life as a battle. But the deepest battle does not consist of hating the demon. It consists of preventing it from ruling from the darkness. A complete human being is not someone who has never felt anger, envy, desire, pride, fear, or resentment. Such a human being does not exist. A complete human being is one who has descended deeply enough into themselves to know what forces inhabit them, what wounds move them, and what shadows might possess them if they stop paying attention. Because there is no light without shadow, no wisdom without dissent, no wholeness without confronting that which we would rather not be. And perhaps, in the end, the inner demon is not the opposite of the soul. Perhaps it is the part of the soul we forgot in the hell of our own unconsciousness, waiting for someone to have the courage to descend, look it in the eyes, and bring it back to life. If this video helped you look at a part of yourself that usually remains hidden, you can support the channel by sharing it, leaving a comment, or subscribing for more reflections on depth psychology, symbols, the shadow, and individuation. And if you wish to continue this journey, perhaps the next step is to ask an even more unsettling question. Not what demon lives within us, but what part of us created it in order to survive.